top 3 must-have firearms for home defense, self-defense, for a survival situation, SHTF. I'm going to kind of approach that subject. I've talked about it in the past. I did a few years ago. I did the 5 top guns that you need to have, and I've learned a lot since then. A lot of my ideas have changed. And so really what I'm going to talk about specifically is for those who are not necessarily into guns. I mean, they see the need for a gun. They understand that they need one for self-defense, for protection, possibly for hunting. What is it that is really important? You know, I'm a gun collector. I'd like to shoot. It's my hobby. And I have a multitude of guns. So I'm really into the latest and the greatest. But what about those guys that they just are on a budget and they don't really care about having a lot of guns? They just want what they need. So we're going to look at 3 guns that I feel, and this is just subjective. Obviously, there's a lot of opinions about this. But what are the 3 guns that you need and why? And I'm going to start out with number 1, the number 1 gun that I feel that everyone needs, and then I'm going to go down the list. Now, what got me started thinking about this is we work with a small group to just be more prepared, to kind of work together on food sources, gardening, self-defense, even in an SHTF situation, being able to rely on one another, just to be more self-reliant. One of the things I noticed was they weren't that well versed in what guns they needed, what firearms for protection. Most of them had one or the other. And so what I want to do is talk about if I only had one firearm, what would it be? So the big thing is, and just hands down, is a handgun. And the reason that I would choose a handgun before all other things, bar none, is that it is very concealable. This is something that you can, if you're on the move, if you need to get in a vehicle, if you're out in public, you can have a handgun on your person and no one would know the difference. It's not going to alarm anyone, and yet you have personal self-defense. Of course, this can be used in a home defense situation as well. One of the things about having a firearm is, and of course this is a Glock 19, all these guns have been safety checked and they are unloaded. But this is a Glock 19, it's a 9mm, it's a very common caliber, and Glocks are very durable. And this is my personal SHTF gun. If I had one gun to have, this is the one I would have. Now, there are others, though, that carry other things like a nice 1911 and, of course, a revolver. And those are great personal self-defense firearms. One of the things, though, I want you to consider about a handgun is something that is very common in caliber, something you can find anywhere, and something that is with decent capacity. One of the things about a revolver that you're going to find is that you only have 5 to 6, 7 rounds at the max, and the reloads take a while. Of course, in a 1911, typically you have 7 or 8 rounds. One of the things, just being in a lot of defensive classes and watching a lot of tactical classes, having multiple rounds does make a difference with you having your reloads, running out of ammo very quickly. And so my suggestion is a good, decent standard capacity magazine with around 15 rounds or more. Now, of course, there's a lot of states that can have 10. You know what? Then have a gun with 10 rounds. Of course, one of the things about a handgun is you're only going about 50 yards. That's about the max. Now, obviously, you can shoot at farther distances. I mean, I shoot pistols sometimes at 100 yards playing around. But really, the effective range for your typical shooter, 50 yards is pretty much max. So this limits you in how far you can shoot, but it is a great option for a personal defense weapon. But now with choosing a handgun, I would definitely go with something that is of decent quality. You need something that's going to be reliable. You need something that's going to stand up. Now, if you're on a serious budget, you can go to my Sensible Prepper channel, and I have the 3 top budget guns and some of the ideas and themes behind what you need to look for. But if you really want to take care of your self-defense and you have the money to do so, I think you need to buy a premium handgun that has a decent round capacity and that is very reliable and that you can really depend on. Now, one of the big things about buying one single handgun is you need something that will kind of fit a lot of different roles. You know, you want something that's really good and accurate and it's high capacity, but you also want something you could possibly conceal. And the problem with concealing a gun is that it's typically a smaller gun, a little bit shorter barrel, shorter sight radius, a little bit less on the grip. And this is a Glock Model 26, which is fairly large for a concealed carry. And this would be the limit to what I would consider for an SHTF firearm. But the 19 is concealable enough, not quite as much as the 26, but it is concealable, and yet it shoots like a full-size gun, holds 15 rounds. So while I'm not saying necessarily for you to get the 19, there are many medium-sized guns that you can conceal carry, but would also be an excellent handgun for self-defense. Now, one of the most important things you want to consider when you're making your handgun choice for your SHTF handgun is a caliber that is readily accessible, that's available, and that is reasonable. It's one of the reasons why I love the 9mm. It's prolific. They sell more 9mm than any other caliber. And it's also a NATO round. A lot of police agencies use them. And so really 9mm in a good self-defense round is a great choice. Do I like carrying my 45s? Yes. I love carrying them. I love shooting them. I love my little Smith & Wesson 38. I like 357s. I love those things. But when we're really talking about serious life and death situations, you need to really consider the round count, ammo availability, price, so you can stock up on enough ammunition. So those are some things just to consider with your handgun. Guys, if you have the money to store up 45 ammunition, then by all means, feel free to do it. Get you a wide body 45, you've got extra rounds, you got a great caliber, one of the best self-defense calibers around. Making your choice is a personal preference. But these are just some ideas that might help you decide, especially if you're just getting started. Now the next thing is a good 12 gauge shotgun, and a pump preferably, 12 gauge preferably, because 12 gauge is very common. Now if you're of smaller stature, if you're a woman with less experience with shotguns, you may want to go with 20. 410 is, it's smaller, but whatever you have. A lot of homes do have shotguns. The big reason is hunting. A lot of people have hunting shotguns, and they double for self-defense guns. The good thing about having a good pump shotgun is you can remove this barrel, put you a longer barrel on it. My personal favorite is the Remington 870. And of course, this is a CZ612, which is a really exceptional shotgun, very lightweight. I like it because it's very handy. And unfortunately, with my 870, I've got a lot of accessories on it to make it tactical, which I like, but it can make it a little heavy. And so just having a good basic pump shotgun is your best home defense weapon. In fact, all experts agree that a good 12 gauge shotgun is one of the ultimate in home defense. In fact, when we had our break-in recently, I had this 12 gauge shotgun sitting in my closet behind the door. And it was the biggest thing I was concerned about was that someone had this and they could use it against me. I had a handgun. So going against a handgun with this, the shotgun is typically going to win because it's just got a lot more capability. So the shotgun also can be converted with a longer barrel or even with the same barrel into a hunting shotgun. So you not only have home defense, but you also have hunting capabilities, ways to search for food. So the shotgun is a very versatile thing. There's shotgun shells all around. Again, 12 gauge is preferable because it's going to be more common. Of course, there is a downside to the shotgun, and you're limited to range, like you are with a pistol, except actually a little more. Really, about 40 yards is your range with regular birdshot. Now, the other day we were shooting targets at 100 yards, and we were actually peppering those targets, but they're not really lethal at that point. So really you're looking at effective range between 40 and 50 yards. If you put in slugs, you can get out to 100 yards. You definitely have an up-close and personal self-defense weapon that is surpassed by none. So 12 gauge shotgun, very important, and that is number 2. Now number 3, and this is a very important element. This is probably one of the most important because a lot of people see the need for a handgun, they see the need for a shotgun, but a rifle, typically they're fairly expensive and there's some question. And most people, unless they are really serious about self-defense, haven't really considered a really good rifle. Let me tell you the number one reason why I like a rifle is because of the range. With a shotgun, with a pistol, like I said, we're going about 50 yards. Let's just say 100 yards. If someone has a rifle, they can pin you down. They can be 300 yards away, and you're going to have very little success at defending yourself against a decent centerfire caliber rifle. Now, obviously, these are fairly expensive type rifles, and yes, you can get a Mosin Nagant for about $150. You can buy a big wad of ammo, and you can defend yourself at longer ranges. And if you're just getting into firearms and you really don't want to spend the $7 or $8 or $1,000, $1,200 on one of these type rifles, then a Mosin Nagant would work well because it'll give you some range. I mean, you know, you can go out to 700-800 yards with a Mosin Nagant, and they can be effective. But the big thing is, and what I'm showing here, is that you're limited to round count. You have 5 rounds in a bolt-action World War I and World War II vintage rifle. Here we have an AR-15, and of course 30-round magazines, if your state allows. The AK-47, same thing, 30-round magazines, and then you can go with something more like this 308, which 20-round magazines typically. The big thing about these kind of guns is you can take the magazines and you can carry extra magazines and you can load them. Yeah, the SKS is a great rifle, but you're limited to your rounds and you're limited to mag changes. There are some additional mags that I like, and you know what, if you're on a budget and that's what you have, you do the best with what you have. But as far as the 3 best, to me, I consider one of these type rifles to be very important in a survival situation. You're going to need to be able to multiply yourself, and with multiple rounds you can multiply your capability. If you have 5 rounds in a bolt action rifle, you're going to be very limited. I can carry 6 magazines for my AR-15 and have 120 rounds of ammunition at hand and quick reloads. And then I've got the range I need too. I can go out to 600 yards. So, you know, being able to have those kind of capabilities is important. One of the things too is these are very easy to accessorize. There's a lot of different parts, scopes, sights, stock systems, tons of magazines. And I think that's one of the things that the AR-15 has an edge over, is that you get the military surplus magazines, or there's a lot of different Magpul, PMags, a lot of different other really high quality magazine systems that you can get at a very reasonable price. So the AR-15 to me is my choice for SHTF. Now, of course, on the downside, the caliber, the 5.56 or the 223 is not quite as effective as the 7.62 by 3.9. But one of the things I want to point out too about your AK round is that right now, with a lot of the stuff that's going on in the Ukraine and with Russian imports being stopped, used to, the AK-47 had a huge advantage because your ammunition was so much cheaper. But now that's going to come to an end coming up soon. Yes, you'll still be able to get it. But one of the things I really love though about the AR is that it is a NATO round. 5.56 is excellent, and you can store up a lot of ammunition, get it at a reasonable price. So that's one of the reasons why I like the AR-15. Now, your 308, and that's a SETME, which is the original HK91. You know, it shoots 308. 308's heavy, the recoil's heavy, but it is extremely effective. So 308 is a fantastic option if you can handle it. Now, in the 308 rifle, of course, you have your HK, or this SETME, FN FAL, the M1A1, the AR-10, which is an excellent 308 rifle, more on your AR-15 platform. And, of course, there are other rifles that fit into that category. They are heavy, the magazines are heavy, the ammunition's heavy. But, again, there are a lot of guys out there that love the 308, and I understand why. But whatever you choose, make sure that you find a good rifle. Make sure you get extra magazines. To me, if you have 6 magazines for your rifle, you're at bare minimum. And really, at the price that magazines are, that's not a big deal. And secondly, your ammunition, though, is just as important. In fact, to me, I tell anyone that asks that I think that 1,000 rounds of ammunition per rifle is your bare minimum. So if you stock up on ammunition, your guns, and your magazines, you're doing pretty good. You know, you can also get parts for these. And again, majorly, you can get parts for your AR-15. And there's a lot of these being sold out on the market. I love the AK-47, and I know a lot of guys are going to use this in an SHTF situation if it ever occurs. So there's nothing wrong with this. If you do, make sure you build your system and have the magazines, the extra parts that you need, and your ammunition as well for whatever you use. Now, you can also double this as a hunting rifle. And of course, the AK-47 and your 308 are actually going to be a little better, like for deer hunting or for different situations, even hog hunting, which could be a definite food source in a grid down situation. But your AR-15 can take down game It's just that it's not going to be quite as effective as some of these other rounds. So, you have to weigh out your personal preference, what you like to shoot, what you feel the most confidence and the most comfort in. That to me is the main thing. I can sit here and tell you all the reasons why, you need an AK-47. I can tell you those. On the other hand, I can tell you why you need an AR, and I can tell you why you need the 308. And so they all have distinct advantages and they all have disadvantages. So it's just what works best for you. Now, while to me all three of these rifles are excellent choices, there are a number of other guns that may not be the optimum but could be used very well. One is a lever action rifle. In 30-30, very plentiful, having that kind of hunting capability. And then even a standard hunting rifle. In 270, 243, 30-06, those are very capable rounds. You're going to be limited by how fast you can load them, but they are capable. And just like the Mosin Nagant that we talked about, these will give you a lot of range, and you can put multiple rounds down range at a fairly decent pace. Not anywhere like you can with your semi-automatic rifles, but they are options. But the big thing is to make sure that the caliber is fairly common. And so if it's a common hunting round, that may be something. Now the big problem with your hunting rounds is they're going to be more expensive, especially with a lot of like 270, 243. You start buying a lot of that ammunition, it can really get out of hand. 308 to me is one of the best calibers because they make a lot of ammunition for it at reasonable prices. So you can shoot your surplus ammunition from different countries through your basic bolt action 308 rifle. That would give you a little more option. So hopefully this will give you some food for thought. None of these are bad choices. They all work. They can all save your life. But just make sure you have those different areas covered. Yes, even though I said the handgun was number one, all three of them are equally different. Just like the AK, the AR, and the 308 rifle have advantages and disadvantages, the handgun, the shotgun, and the rifle comparably have advantages and disadvantages. And that's why really I'll say that you need the handgun first, but to be honest with you, you need all three to be well-rounded in your self-defense. And let's just be honest, let's hope we never have to use any of these. But if we do, we're going to be prepared to protect ourselves and our families. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. That's one of the reasons why I really like the 9mm, because it's very prolific. It's one of the reasons why I like the 9mm. It's prolific. Prolific. One of the things that I really like, I personally am a big favor. Things have kind of gone crazy a lot of places. I mean, all hell's breaking loose all over the place, and the world's coming to a big end.